Hello, and welcome back to another creepy and true New Orleans tale. This tale takes us back to 1980s New Orleans and a special neighborhood restaurant we'll call Miss Hazel's. Now, Miss Hazel's had been around at that time for 80 years. The namesake was the grandmother of the head chef who now owned the restaurant. We'll call her Alicia. Now, Alicia took pride in curating all of her grandmother's best recipes into a daily menu that satisfied people who came from far and wide to try her cuisine. There was a picture that hung in the dining room of the matriarch of the family. People loved the food. Miss Hazel was no longer around to oversee things, but her spirit was certainly felt in every delicious bite. Her specialty was gumbo. It was known statewide, winning all types of competitions. Now, back in the 80s, food critics were anonymous. Unlike today, when people can do food reviews and get on the internet and post for everyone to see. Now, there was a popular food reviewer that worked for a local paper, and he had never been to Miss Hazel's. So he decided he was going to show up one day and he would write about it. He ordered the gumbo, of course, bread pudding, a few other dishes that Miss Hazel's was known for. Now, he ate every single bite, cleaning the plates. One would say he truly enjoyed his meal. But the next week, when the food review was posted in the newspaper, he said the most vile things about Miss Hazel's food. Now, people in the neighborhood were abuzz because how could this person, whoever they were, talk so terribly about food that had nourished souls for generations? Miss Hazel's granddaughter was so upset. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know who this person was. And she pleaded with anyone who would listen to find that person and have them come back. And she would personally make sure that they had the best of the best that the restaurant had to offer. But unfortunately, her pleas fell on deaf ears. And this food critic continued to talk terribly around town about Miss Hazel's, even saying that their kitchen was dirty. Come to find out, this food reviewer had a friend opening a restaurant nearby. He wanted to put a damper on the competition so that his friend's restaurant could thrive instead. Many people come to New Orleans for the delicious cuisine. And it's been said we have some of the best in the world. I will not argue with you there. And while there are a lot of things that can have room for improvement, gumbo is taken very seriously here. And when you say someone's gumbo is bad, you better have a lot of proof behind it. Well, this food reviewer, we'll call him Paul. Paul had no idea who he was messing with. One day, a bag with some food shows up in front of his door with a nice little note. Give us another try. Signed, Miss Hazel. Now, Paul was shocked because he was anonymous. How would anyone know who he was or where he lived was beyond him. Now, he took the gumbo because, of course, it was absolutely delicious, but he couldn't let anyone know that. But he continued to give bad reviews and talk poorly about Miss Hazel's restaurant. So much so, customers were starting to not show up anymore. They would soon be on the verge of financial ruin if that continued. And Miss Hazel's, the neighborhood staple, would have to close. But Miss Hazel, who was very determined in life, was just as determined in death to make sure her legacy continued. One day, Paul was at home watching TV when there was a on his door. He got up to answer it, and there before him stood an old black woman, dressed in clothing not of that time, for sure, wearing an apron, hands folded across her stomach. And she looked at him and she said, Mr. Paul, I hear tell you don't like my gumbo. I came from very far away to let you know. I suggest you change your tune or else. Now, Paul had never seen Miss Hazel in person, but he saw that picture in the dining room of that restaurant, and he knew exactly who she was. But he was tough, mean. Said, oh, they just got somebody to look like her and come knock on my door. I'm not changing my mind about that gumbo. And in fact, tomorrow I'm going to write another article about it and keep telling people how terrible it is. And Paul did exactly that. And again, Miss Hazel's was getting closer and closer to ruin. You can always count on spirit to show up exactly when you need them, especially when you are divinely protected. A few nights after that article came out, Paul was at home enjoying a nice cup of tea when once again there was a knock on his door. He got up to answer, and who was there but Miss Hazel herself? This time she wasn't smiling. And she said, Paul, I told you to change your tune about my gumbo, or else. Now, Paul, being the smarting pants that he was, laughed in Miss Hazel's face. I don't know who you are, lady, but get off my porch. And as he went to slam the door in her face, Miss Hazel stepped inside. Paul, in shock, backed up because how did she move so fast? How did the door not close on her? And Miss Hazel let him know, I'm here to make your mistake right. And I'm not leaving until it's done. Paul tried to turn and run away. Miss Hazel moved faster than he did. Not bad for an old lady. She cut him off and shoved him into a chair. And from behind her back, she had a delicious, piping hot bowl of gumbo. And she told him, go ahead and eat it. I promise you'll change your mind. Paul still refused. Well, let's just say Miss Hazel made sure he finished each and every drop. The next day, Paul didn't show up for work. So one of his friends went to his home to check on him, make sure he was okay. They found his door unlocked. And when they went inside, there was Paul in his lounge chair, eyes wide open, and a big old gumbo spoon protruding from his mouth. He was deader than Good Friday. Funny part is, Paul had a woman's apron draped around his neck. Needless to say, no one ever wrote another bad word about Miss Hazel's ever again. But let this be a warning to you. Anyone who comes to New Orleans and tries the cuisine and decides to tell everyone how terrible it is, be mindful of whose recipes you're talking bad about. Because let me tell you, baby, we are serious about that gumbo share. But don't take my word for it. I'll let Miss Hazel speak for herself.